Hello and welcome to Watch Releases Recap for the week of February 21st until February the 28th. Let's begin with Vulcain and their new Skindiver Chronograph watch. Vulcain is a company with a very rich history, believe it or not, first established in 1858. In 1960s, they had a very popular Skindiver watch, and now for 2025, we see an introduction of this sort of vintage-inspired chrono. When I first laid my eyes on this watch, I instantly thought of Nevada Grandchen. It has a very similar design language, which makes sense because the man who oversees Vulcain is also overseeing Nevada Grandchen. That's why the two share very similar design languages, but of course they're based on the watch from 1960s, and in 1960s, this sort of design was very common. Now, just like many other vintage watch recreations, this one here sort of harkens back to those 1960s watches, but with modern materials and slightly larger dimensions. This model comes with a 39.7mm diameter. It's about 13mm in case height, which is pretty impressive because this watch does feature an automatic chronograph movement. This one also comes with 200 meters of water resistance. Again, pretty impressive because this one is a chronograph with exposed pushers, but they were able to figure out 200 meters of WR. In terms of the movement, this one is powered by the ETA Valjoux 7753. It is essentially the same movement as the 7750 with a slight modification and no date complication. It beats at 28,800 vibrations per hour, and it comes with 42 hours of power reserve. In terms of the dial variations, you have the silver dial or the black one. Out of the two, I prefer the black dial. I think that looks very sharp. For whatever reason, I really like the design of this watch. I like the combination of black, orange, and silver. But I know some people will not be too happy with that faux patina on the indexes and the set of hands. And for those people, of course, the silver version also exists. This one here is more sort of modern and less vintage inspired. In terms of the pricing and availability, this will not be a limited edition. It's part of the standard catalog. If you go for the one on the strap, either rubber or leather, it's 2,700 euro. If you go for the one on the metal bracelet, it's 180 euro more, or 2,980. The new RGM 801 Classic Enamel, now available in a 40mm case. RGM is an American watch company, and I believe currently is the only American watch company that does everything in-house, including the case components, dials, as well as the movement. Their Caliber 801 movement came out, I think, 2006, 2007, something like that, and it's a pretty nice looking manual wound movement. It beats at 18,800 vibrations per hour, it has 19 joules, and about 40 to 44 hours of power reserve. And prior to the release of this model, this movement was only available in a larger 43mm case. Now it's available in a 40mm diameter that's also thinner, about 9.3mm in case height, and the case is made out of stainless steel, and it features 50 meters of water resistance. The style of this watch is very classic, traditional, with the enamel dial, Roman numerals all around for the hours, as well as the sub-dial at the 6 o'clock position. It also features a traditional looking blued set of hands. The movement is very beautiful. I like the blued screws, I like the exposed jewels. It has a lot of decoration, it has nice looking bridges. Is just a pleasure to look at, and I really like how the movement fills pretty much the whole case back of the watch. On these traditional looking watches, in my opinion, I think it's important to have the movement take up the whole case. Otherwise, it kind of looks cheap and not as refined. This will be a limited edition to only 300 pieces, and this is not a cheap watch. It's priced at 14,900 USD. The new Stowa Flieger original model. Stowa is a German watch brand that is specializing in pilot Flieger watches. They have a wide range of different watches, and on this show I covered actually a few of their releases. Now for 2025 there is a new model with a Type A dial and a 42mm case. It's also about 13.5mm in case height, so it's a bit on the thicker side. It also features 100 meters of water resistance. It's made out of stainless steel, and it features that sort of matte bead blasted finish. In terms of the movement, this one is very unique. It features the Caliber Stowa M1, which is essentially a modified Unitas 6498. What they have modified, they created a central seconds hand, and they created an extra bridge, but it still beats at 18,000 vibrations per hour. They added one extra joule. Instead of 17, this one has 18 joules. and it has 46 hours of power reserve. And just like the watch we just talked about, this one features the movement that covers pretty much the whole case back, and the movement is finished to a pretty high degree. I think this one looks great. However, for this level of refinement, you do have to pay extra, and this watch is not exactly cheap. It's priced at 3,000 euro, or 2,990 euro to be exact. I think it's a bit expensive for this watch, and only sort of watch purists will go for something like that, because Stowa of course offers watches with the Selita movements or the ETA movements that are a third of this price, and they look essentially exactly the same as this watch, just with a different movement. The new Citizen Series 8 Ice Blue Limited Edition. I think this Series 8 for Citizen has been a pretty big hit. We've seen a lot of limited edition, special edition watches. We've seen GMT watches and divers. This one here is sort of in between. It's an everyday model, as I would call it. What I like about this model is that it looks like it has that integrated bracelet design. However, you can remove the bracelet and change it for something like a NATO strap or a rubber strap if you want to, which is a pretty big advantage. The dislike that I have with this bracelet is the fact that it doesn't taper, and in my opinion, bracelets that don't taper, especially on this type of design, will wear pretty chunky and pretty heavy. Of course, you have to try one on to see how it fits on your wrist, but that's just at least from my experience. In terms of the dimensions, this one features a 40mm diameter. It's about 11.6mm in case height. It's made out of stainless steel, and it features 100 meters of water resistance. The movement powering this one is the 9 series Miyota movement, which beats at 28,800 vibrations per hour, and it has 42 hours of power reserve. The standout feature for this watch is clearly this dial. I really like the color. I like the texture on the dial. It's supposed to look like frozen ice on a lake or something like that. In terms of the pricing and availability, as I mentioned, this is a limited edition to 1,800 pieces worldwide, and it's priced at 1,300 USD. The new Tissot T-Race MotoGP Automatic Chronograph Limited Edition. Tissot is the official timekeeper for MotoGP, which is the Formula One equivalent, but with motorcycles. I know it's very popular, but I personally don't really follow the sport. And for the longest time, they have been releasing special models specifically designed for the MotoGP timekeeping. These models weren't really popular. The last year's model looked kind of cheap-ish. So for this year, for 2025, Tissot decided to slightly re-engineer the case and give us an open works dial. In some ways it works, in others not so much. In terms of the dimensions, this one is a pretty big watch, 45mm diameter by about 14.8mm in case height. The case is made out of stainless steel, and it does feature some PVD coated elements for more visually interesting design. This one comes with 100 meters of water resistance and is powered by the Vulcain A05 automatic chronograph movement, which is essentially a modified Vulcain 7750. It beats at 28,800 vibrations per hour. However, the power reserve was extended to 68 hours. And in terms of the design, I think this one is going to be divisive. It kind of looks almost like a Hublot in some ways with that skeletonized dial. What I don't like is the fact that it does have the subdial at the 6 o'clock position. That's the hours for the chronograph. However, there is no real subdial, so you can't even read the hours readout. It's kind of useless. Maybe just get rid of that altogether. I also think skeletonizing Vulcain movement is not the most appealing. They haven't really done too much modification to this movement, so it kind of looks ugly. It just looks kind of cheap, at least in my opinion. However, the case, if you like these type of cases, I think you will appreciate. Now, this watch is not exactly expensive. It is a limited edition to 2,025 pieces, I guess 2025, and it's priced at 2,095 USD. The new Hanhart 415 ES chronograph. Just a few months ago, I covered the Hanhart Chronograph 415 ES. That was a more faithful recreation of the original from mid-1960s. And now for 2025, we got a slightly different version of essentially the same chronograph. The biggest difference between this one and the one that was released before is the dial and the color combination. And to be fair, I really like how this one looks. I think it looks better than the one released last year. It still comes in the same case, 39mm diameter by about 13.5mm in case height. It still features 100 meters of water resistance, and it is still made out of stainless steel. This one is powered by the same movement, the Sellita SW510 manual wound chronograph movement that beats at 28,800 vibrations per hour, and it has 58 hours of power reserve. I think the black dial with the white and red accents looks very sharp on this watch. As I said before, I preferred the look of this one over the one released last year, and this will not be a limited edition. It's part of the standard catalog and it's priced at 2,390 euro. I believe it's the same price as the one released last year. The new AP releases. Audemars Piguet is turning 150 years this year, which is a huge deal, and they never really went out of business. It's continuous 150 years of operation. Very few companies in the world can claim that. Now for this year, we are getting a few different models and a new movement. So first, let's talk about the movement and the models that feature this new movement. It's a caliber 7138, and the big difference between this new caliber and the previous caliber is the fact that now you control all functions of the perpetual calendar as well as the moon phase just with the crown. There are no extra pushers, there are no tools needed for adjustment. Having all functions of the perpetual calendar be adjusted just with the crown makes your life a lot easier, and you run less risk of scratching the case with the tools. This new perpetual calendar movement will be available with 3 different models, 2 Royal Oak models, one in steel and one in sand gold. The steel model is 109,000 Swiss francs and the sand gold version is 130,000 Swiss francs. There's also the Code 1159 model in 18 karat white gold. That's the 3rd model that will feature this movement, and that one is priced the same as the stainless steel Royal Oak at 109,000 Swiss francs. In terms of the sizing, they stayed pretty much the same as the previous version. The Royal Oak models are 41mm in diameter by about 9.5mm in case height. The Code 1159 is 10.6mm in case height and still 41mm in case diameter. And even though AP is not the first company to do a perpetual calendar all controlled with the crown, it is still very impressive that they were able to do that. So, you know what, good for them. I think they were waiting for 150th anniversary to release this movement, because I am pretty sure they already had the technology ready to go. But that's not the only AP release we got. We also got the new dial variations for Code 1159. So there's going to be the new Tuscany Blue. That's the limited edition, is the new special model that's only available in the chronograph version. And it is pretty expensive, 85,600 Swiss francs. However, it does come in a white gold case. It still features the same dimensions pretty much as other versions. The case is 41mm in diameter and about 12.6mm in case height. And lastly, we got a couple of new gray dials for the Code 1159, but this one in stainless steel. So there is the chronograph version as well as the time and date only version. In terms of the case, they come pretty much in the same case, 41mm. However, the time and date version is slightly thinner, 10.7mm in case height as opposed to 12.6mm in case height for the chronograph version. Both versions are powered by the in-house movements. One is powered by the 4302 caliber movement, which is a high beat automatic movement that has 70 hours of power reserve. The chronograph is powered by the caliber 4401, which is a flyback chronograph movement that is also a high beat movement with 70 hours of power reserve. And these won't be limited editions, they're part of the standard catalog. The time and only version is 26,000 euro and the chronograph is 10 grand more at 36,000 euro. As usual, very expensive watches, especially the time and date only version. 26,000 euro for a stainless steel watch. Yeah, it's a bit high, but hey, there's nothing new. That's AP for you. And that's pretty much it for this week's releases. Those are the watches that I wanted to highlight. I appreciate you watching this video all the way until the end. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the YouTube channel for more videos like this in the future, and leave a comment in the comment section below. Let me know what you think about this week's releases. I always enjoy reading your comments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.